If you drink coffee every day, your brain is slowly becoming dependent on it just to function at a level that used to be your baseline. I've spent the last 4 years helping hundreds of entrepreneurs optimize their performance, and one of the biggest things that I've had to fix over and over again is how they use coffee. So I want to show you the 3 specific ways that coffee is working against you right now, and then give you a step-by-step protocol that turns it into something that can actually help you perform better. I went 450 days completely caffeine-free, tracked my sleep, my stress, my focus, all of it. And what I found completely changed how I use caffeine and how I coach my clients on it. And by the end of this video, you'll have the exact same protocol. And by the way, I've put together a free guide that covers the exact caffeine protocol that I'm about to walk you through in this video with all the details, dosages, and timing. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to go and grab it. Before you understand the problems of drinking caffeine every day, you have to understand on a high level how it works. The first way is by blocking your adenosine receptors. One common problem that you may have heard is that when you wake up in the morning, even though adenosine gets cleared out of the system when you go to bed, there is some leftovers in your brain when you actually wake up that makes you feel a little bit foggy and groggy and slow when you start in the morning. But the problem is that people go ahead and drink coffee straight after they wake up, and they block the adenosine receptors while adenosine still is kind of laying around in your system. And you see, when you wake up in the morning, you need to let your adenosine that is left over from the night before naturally get out of the system by binding to the receptors, and it will naturally get cleared out. It's not a big deal. But when you block it with caffeine straight after waking up, the problem that you're causing is that while those adenosine receptors are already blocked from the morning, there is a surplus of adenosine floating around in the system, waiting for the caffeine to stop working, to wear off, and then you feel a afternoon crash, which requires you to either take a nap, which is going to slow you down, or drink more coffee. The second thing that coffee harms for you is your dopamine system. When you drink caffeine, it increases the number and the sensitivity of your dopamine receptors. And by doing so, it makes everything else that you're pairing with coffee more interesting and more exciting and more fun. It does not raise your dopamine levels, as a lot of people just say. It just makes everything else that you're doing aside coffee just have a more potent dopamine response because your receptors are more sensitive to that experience. This is why you may associate certain things with coffee. For example, socializing. Like in Greece, where I'm from, a lot of people go out and have coffee together. So we associate coffee with social life and going out. Or another more common thing is that when you sit down and work, you drink coffee, and then your brain starts associating the action of work with the coffee because of the dopamine feeling. So in other words, caffeine is a reinforcer. So when you stop using caffeine to do that particular action, you feel like it got harder. But in reality, your brain just stopped rewarding it with caffeine. Another thing that caffeine does is that it affects your GLP-1 production. If you don't know what GLP-1 is, it's pretty simple. It's a hormone that controls your blood sugar, your mental sharpness, and your appetite. The work of GLP-1 is to signal that you're full and you're not hungry from the brain. And this is the exact reason why when you drink coffee, it blunts your appetite. Another thing that coffee does is that it increases your acetylcholine and your stress hormones. Acetylcholine is the focus depth chemical. It helps you focus deeper and longer, and it's the main cognitive benefit you get from actually drinking coffee. But simultaneously, it spikes up your cortisol and your adrenaline, which are the stress hormones, which means that it puts your nervous system into a kind of survival mode, into fight or flight. This short term is good for energy and fulfilling turned on and go mode, but for long term, it fries your nervous system. Think about it like putting your body in emergency mode all the time just to work behind the computer. It doesn't make any sense. Quick reminder, by the way, the full protocol with all of this outlined step by step is in the description, completely free. So if you want to get it, go get it. Now let's continue the video. As you keep drinking coffee over time, it stops working, and you just use it as something to perform below baseline for most of the time, just to function. One of the reasons for that is because it depletes your dopamine levels. Think of it like having a button that you can press, and every time you press that button, you get some water that flows out of the tap to fill your glass of water. Now, when you first drink coffee, or rather when you first tap that button, your cup fills up entirely. The second time, the third time, it's almost the same. The 10th time or the 20th time, it fills up 3/4 of the way. And then the 50th time, the 100th time, it fills up 2/4 of the way. And fast forward to today, you press the button 100 times just to get a few drops droplets of water into your cup. This is exactly the same situation with your dopamine. When you first drink your coffee, you have an amazing feeling. You feel on top of the world. You feel driven, motivated, focused. But you end up having to drink coffee just to feel normal. So, and the way dopamine works is that imagine you have a big tank of water that you can shake and move around. So the level of the water in the tank resembles your levels of dopamine. And so every single time you drink coffee, through the actual effects, the indirect effects in your dopamine, it causes a wave in that tank. So imagine you're shaking that tank. As a result, it causes that wave. And the bigger the wave, the bigger the actual response of dopamine. But the thing is that that tank doesn't have a lid, it doesn't have a cap. So when you have big waves, the water flows out of the tank and causes your baseline level of water to drop lower, which means your baseline level of dopamine drops lower. And the more days you drink coffee every single day for, that causes your baseline of dopamine to drop lower and lower and lower. And if you, before you drink coffee, feel like you have a headache, you're pissed off, you're not in the best mood possible, you're tired, and you require coffee to solve that, then you have a problem. Because this isn't how you're supposed to function. And the other problem is with what I mentioned before with stress hormones and acetylcholine. While increasing your stress hormones, or acetylcholine, is good for the moment for you to wake up and feel alert and driven and focused on the task at hand, over time, especially if you're drinking coffee every day, it is a very negative thing. Because it actually, as I said before, harms your nervous system or your ability to switch off and to recovery mode. Because when you're drinking coffee daily, one thing that is called your HRV, which means your heart variability system, which is a metric that directly shows you how well your body is able to recover from stressors, goes lower and lower and lower. When this goes lower and lower and lower, that means that your body cannot actually recover from all the stress. So you're compounding stress after stressor after stressor, and your body isn't able to recover from that. So not only you're using coffee just to function, but on top of that, you're adding that stressor that your body can't recover from, and so you're in that endless negative loop. Because of the importance of recovery and sleep as an entrepreneur and a mental worker, or in other words, as I like to say, a mental athlete, because recovery is very important. When you are using coffee just to function and compromising your stress resilience and your recovery as a result of that, burnout is something that happens naturally as a response years or months after doing that every day. Another problem is the fact that when you're drinking coffee, it dehydrates you. It signals the kidneys to excrete minerals, and when you're not smart about that, it actually drops your performance. So in one way, you increase your perceived performance because you're drinking something that increases your sensitivity to dopamine and your cortisol and your adrenaline, but you're opening another leak in the bucket, which is the fact that you're getting dehydrated. And even a 1% change or a 1% drop in hydration levels improves your reaction speed, your processing speed, your memory, your focus drastically, because your neurons in your brain require a lot of sodium, magnesium, potassium, a lot of electrolytes to be able to communicate to each other. And slight drops of your hydration levels will influence how your brain communicates and your performance level. And the other problem with drinking coffee daily is tolerance. All of the things that we talked about, the fact that caffeine blocks your adenosine receptors, the dopamine message you get from it, the energy and the actual boost you get from it, all those things weaken over time, which means you need to drink more and more coffee just to get equal, if not less, benefits from it. And over time, you will actually get to a point where, as I mentioned before, you wake up, you have a headache, and you're foggy, and you're slow, and you're irritated, unless you have your dose. So you become this coffee zombie addict, and you just use coffee as a crutch to function instead of a tool to enhance your performance to the next level. And the good news is that all of this that we've talked about is completely reversible. Every single client I've worked with that followed this exact protocol not only got their energy back within weeks, but have managed to use caffeine as a weapon to enhance their focus, productivity, energy, and most importantly, work output. And here are the steps of the protocol that you need to implement if you want to actually leverage caffeine as a weapon instead of a crutch to just function. The first step is delaying coffee for the first 90 minutes of your day. This is because, as I mentioned earlier, when you wake up, you have some leftover adenosine, which is again the tiredness chemical. You have some leftovers in your brain, and that adenosine needs to naturally be cleared out of the system. While you wake up, you drink some water, you move around, you get sunlight, it naturally gets cleared out of the system. If you block it within those first 90 minutes, what happens is that excess cortisol that builds up while your receptors are blocked will cause you a massive crash after the caffeine benefits wear off, and therefore you will either need a nap, which will slow you down, or you will drink more coffee, which will impede your recovery later that night. Step 2 is to increase electrolyte intake for the day that you are drinking coffee. The reason for that is, as we mentioned, that caffeine signals your kidneys to excrete minerals, which cause you to be dehydrated. Even if you don't necessarily feel that in the moment, it will marginally drop your performance, your energy, your decision making, your sharpness. And so the days that you are drinking coffee, which, by the way, I'm going to tell you in a moment what do I mean by days in which you're drinking coffee, you need to increase your electrolyte intake. So more salt, more potassium, more magnesium, more calcium. The third step is to add about 200 milligrams of L-theanine into your coffee. L-theanine is an amino acid that is derived from green tea. What it does is that it's really good at activating something called the GABA system. The GABA system is a system of neurotransmitters that enables you to calm down, relax, and it kind of activates the part of the system that is responsible for rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. Now you're probably like, why would I want to activate that system when I need to get stuff done? The reason why you want to add that into your coffee is because it allows you to get the energy benefits from the coffee without stressing you out and without causing anxiety or jittery feelings. In other words, you get the good stuff from the coffee without the jitteriness and extra kind of nervous energy, so to say, from the coffee. The fourth step, which is arguably one of the most important steps with caffeine optimization, is not drinking coffee 10 hours before bed. You see, caffeine has a lifespan of 12 to 14 hours, which means if you drink 150 milligrams at around 10 a.m., because it's your second cup of the day, let's say, you still have about 40 milligrams of coffee in you at around 9 p.m. So if you're trying to go to bed early for that day, you're still trying to go to bed with espresso shot flowing in your bloodstream. No wonder you're not going to be able to recover deeply and get enough REM and deep sleep. You might think that, I'm drinking a coffee in the evening and I'm able to fall asleep nicely and I don't even feel it, but it can actually reduce your deep sleep up to 30% or even 40%, which is a kind of decrease that you would see if I were to age you for like 10 or 20 years. So it is one of the most important things to avoid drinking coffee into that kind of time frame where it's going to stay in your system and negatively impact your recovery and your sleep quality. And now probably the part that you were waiting for, how many days a week should you be drinking caffeine? Should you be drinking it every other day, every day but less? The answer to this is 1 to 3 days a week maximum. You want to only use coffee on mentally heavy days, such as the days that you have to film a lot of content like I am doing right now, or the days that you have the most of your sales calls, for example, if you're taking sales calls, or any kind of public speaking day, or any kind of day that you are doing a lot of cognitively demanding work, more than the other days, of course, comparatively. This is going to allow you to perform at a really high baseline on most days, and then when you really need that extra edge, you leverage caffeine strategically as a tool to perform above and beyond rather than actually needing it to function below baseline every single day. Now, not drinking caffeine every single day is probably going to be a little bit difficult for the first days because you're still drinking caffeine, you're just not doing it every day. It's going to be a little difficult in the beginning, but soon your dopamine baseline resets, your sensitization to caffeine will increase massively, and your new baseline of how you perform without coffee will drastically increase, which will allow you to have more stable energy levels, better sleep quality, and to be honest with you, majority of the benefits that come when not drinking coffee every day are going to come by what happens to your sleep quality as a result. You get more deep sleep, more REM sleep. You're able to have longer sleep as well because you stay asleep longer. And the majority of the benefits really come from that. Your cortisol levels drop, your testosterone increases, and as a result, you have more drive, more energy, more focus. And then on days that you need that extra edge, because it's, as I said, mentally demanding, you use coffee as a tool to perform above baseline. Now, the sixth step, which is sort of like the icing on the cake, is to combine caffeine with synergistic compounds, such as subroxy, polygola, and rhodiola. Those things will prevent dopamine from breaking down, reduce the jittery feelings and the nervous energy, as I said, from drinking coffee, and will enhance the benefits that you get from coffee entirely. Now, I actually put together a full caffeine optimization protocol that covers everything that we talked about today in detail and gives you a step-by-step implementation guide. It gives you the exact timing, the dosages, the exact supplements that you should take, the weekly schedule, plus a few things here and there that I didn't have the time to go over in this video. As I said, it's completely free, so what I'll go ahead and do is I'll put the link in the description for you to go ahead and use it if you want, so go ahead and grab it.